Croissant. This is James, aka JP Harker, coming to you with another video. I get 2 books today, both of them very, very good. Spoiler alert. First one is Silures, Resistance, Resilience, Revival by Ray Howell. And the other one, I smile even as I look at it, Ciaphas, Cain, Defender of the Imperium by Sandy Mitchell. I cannot help but smile at that. I'm going to look at this one first because these were both very, very good. Silures. Now, this is written, to put it into context, by Ray Howell, who was one of my lecturers in university. So, very fortunate to be lectured by him. He's a leading expert on the Silures and has written some very good books on them. This is sort of a sequel. There is Searching for the Silures, which we looked at bits of in university many years ago, but I haven't actually bought and read, so badger. I shall get around to that at some point. But just for some context, I'm not going to go through all of them, but these are just some of the notes that I made while reading this, so there's a lot of stuff in there. To give a quick sum up, the Silures are the tribe who lived in this area of Wales. I'm in the southeast part of Wales, and the Silures were the what is now Gwent and Glamorgan tribe. There were other tribes nearby that were, like the Ordovikis, they were on sort of friendly terms for the most part, especially after the Romans came, but the Silures were our guys. And I've been looking into them for ages and ages and ages. For anyone who has, he said, subtly pushing his own books, for anyone who's read the Caledon books, and the Celtish people are called Lurians, well, this is why. It is from Silurians. And this book is about the evidence about them and a little bit of their history and the theories that can be made, because of course we don't have written accounts. They weren't writing things. We have little bits from Tacitus and little tidbits here and there from the Romans, but a lot of this is archaeology, so it's interpretative. Tacitus described the Silures, because there was a very, very long war between the Romans and the Silures, as neither sternness nor clemency could pacify them, which I rather like. And for them as have heard of Caradog, or Caractacus, as he is known by the Romans, he came along to help out at some point while he was trying to whip up support after the dreadful failure at the Thames, and there's an interesting history going on there as well. But I'm just going to look at a few of the interesting points in this book in particular. I have made my notes here. One, which I didn't know, one sees roundhouses in Iron Age Celtic society. I'm using the dreaded C word for Celtic. And it's been considered for some time that, well, they're building these roundhouses because that's all they could build, these sort of wattle and daub structures. And what has been found are things like barns and outbuildings in farms that were square or rectangular, meaning they lived in roundhouses because they wanted to live in houses that were round. And I like that as a little insight into the culture. You could live in a square house if you wanted, but why? Houses are round. And Ray and his son have built their own roundhouse. There's pictures in here, but you wouldn't get a good image of it. They've built their own roundhouse, and you have to make your best guess as to how the roof would have been, because none have survived. But they've put things in like a makeshift window, because it's perfectly possible given how people would have been able to work at the time, and it's very, very interesting. But I like that. It's just a little, we live in round houses. Why? Because we want to. Fair enough. Well, why not? Another little interesting thing is you see Roman coins all over Britain, and Roman coins have been found in Silurian territory, but an oddly large percentage of them are gold. which if you think doesn't actually make sense. Gold should be the smallest percentage. It should then be followed by silver or copper or bronze coins. But that's not how it's worked. It's been huge amounts of gold with some silver, which implies, and Ray says it and I think it makes perfect sense, that they weren't actually used for trading the way you would trade every day, that was still a barter system, but that coins were an easy way to store and transport wealth. So you would do all your usual trade by bartering, but when you could interact with the Romans, you would exchange goods for coins, simply because that's an easy way of storing and hiding all the wealth you have. And I like that. That's a little insight into the society. The third one, just because it links in nicely with a lesson my father taught me about the world, is that there are sort of clustered settlements, in extended family units or clans, and that they would be fairly indifferent, sometimes friendly, sometimes antagonistic to their neighbours. And the idea that the Silures as a single nation, that's not really the case, but then the Romans come and it sort of has to be. And the way it was sort of being put together, Ray put it in a similar way to my father's great advice, which was, he is from a town called Ciaphas, and when he was a boy, the Ciaphas boys used to fight with the Silures boys, which was the village next to it, unless they went down to Pontypridd, which is the big town, in which case they were on the same side against the Ponty boys. Unless, of course, there were Ciaphas, Silures and Ponty boys going up to Cardiff for the day, in which case they were all on the same side and would all fight the Cardiff boys. And I remember him saying that's basically how the world works, because then you'd all be Valley's boys against the City boys, unless somehow you all ended up in London, and then you'd all be Welshmen against the English, unless we were all in France, and then we'd all be British people against the French, unless we were in America, then we'd all be Europeans again, and so on. And it's interesting that the way this was looked at in this book, I rather liked that. My final comment, it's full of, hugely more relevant stuff than this, and I can strongly recommend it to anyone with an interest in Iron Age history. But these were the little bits I'm picking out that sort of just touched me a little bit. And the last one is that a Roman burial was found underneath the sports centre in the university. Now that sports centre was just being built before I got there, and this is a little sideline into my own life. Yes, I'm interrupting my own video. I'm too popular. That's just the way it is. Should have put it on silent, but I just have too many friends. It's a nightmare. My final point. That sports centre was being built when I was just getting there. And I'm a lifelong martial artist, and the first ninjutsu class I went to, which was the first martial art I really took seriously, was in that building. Will you go away? Lesson for life. Turn off your phone when you're making videos. Yes. I could start the video again, but I like to be realistic and in the now. It's just fun for me that a huge discovery that was relevant to Ray was underneath a building that was hugely relevant to my own life. And that just, again, it was a little touching thing. But assuming no more interruptions from the telephone, that's the Silures Resistance, Resilience, Revival. So that's that one. This one, by Ray Howell, sorry. Go out, buy it. This is turning into a chaotic video, but I'm okay with it. I live a chaotic life. Ciaphas Cain, Defender of the Imperium, by Sandy Mitchell. I love Ciaphas Cain so much. He's He is everything that Harry Flashman should have been. For anyone who knows of Harry Flashman, great series of books, but with a slightly two-dimensional protagonist. Ciaphas Cain adds that level of depth to the character. He's this out for his own good, always look out for number one, avoid trouble whenever possible, Imperial Commissar, who happens to be a hero of the Imperium because he accidentally gets into heroic-looking situations. But with Cain, and we see example after example, even though it's his secret memoir and he's talking about what a dreadful guy he is, he keeps doing things that are actually genuinely quite heroic and selfless, but because he has a massive inferiority complex, he brushes past them. It's things like, for some reason I shoved him through the door first. Anyway, I just tried to run as best I could. Like, no, you did it because you are genuinely heroic. And so if someone is killed, he's like, I felt inexplicably saddened by it. And I was moody the whole way back up. It's like, yes, because you're a really sensitive and caring, compassionate man. You just don't like admitting it. For the stories themselves, because I've probably said all this with Hero of the Imperium, the other of these books, the stories themselves, there may be... If the other stories were 10 out of 10, these would be 9 out of 10. They're still really good. But a thing that I really liked about the others was it's with his time with the 597th, which is a Valhallan regiment, and he's only with them for one of these stories. The other ones are at the very beginning of his service and towards the very end of his service when he's semi-retired. So the stories are good, because one of them has one of those stories that made him this great figure that he is in the other books. And the final one is linked in with it very nicely and neatly. And the middle one has our beloved Valhallans in it. And you probably can't see the cabinet. I am a fan of the Valhallan regiments. I should have brought a figure out to wave, but there we go. But yes, as you can probably tell from the smile and the amount of gushing praise I give it, I will recommend this, Ciaphas Cain, Defender of the Imperium, by Sandy Mitchell. Absolutely cracking read. If you're even vaguely familiar with the 40k universe, you'll love it. Even if you don't know the 40k universe and just like a good story, you'll probably like it. So, yes, I can leave it at there. I recently did quite a negative review video, so it's nice to do a really positive one. So that's these. Silures and Ciaphas Cain. Go out and read them, they're really good. This is James, aka JP Harker. Will Vow.